Okay, hang on. We're here. Inner City Press. We've done, I think, 4 of these editions, and we're going to do one more now, because when we leave the courthouse on a Friday, and here, passing by the federal courthouse, passing by the state courthouse, we find the New York Law Journal, as we are now. Not only do we grab some old editions, and there may only be 2 days here, we'll see. We also try to have a legal theory, and I'm not sure what the theory will be today. I was mostly covering these employment discrimination cases. But let's see. Maybe I'll gather my thoughts as I liberate a single copy of each day's Law Journal. That one is Wednesday. One would be enough. We're not going to go any deeper than this, but let's see what this one is, and then that'll be enough. They're actually quite interesting. I mean, also Wednesday. We'll just take one. That's fine. The point is not the newspaper. The point is to say, what is the law? Now, what did we learn? I should have been more prepared. Let's talk about immunity. This is the main thing. This obsesses me. You know, there were other issues that arose about fairness and Fair Labor Standard Acts cases, but I want to talk about immunity, because what was the purpose of immunity? Diplomatic immunity. What it was, I believe, and we can, so that countries would send emissaries to each other, so that short of war they could discuss their problems. You had to have a situation in which the emissary couldn't be arrested. Don't shoot the messenger. That's the idea. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't just grab the guy, as China has grabbed some Canadians, including one guy that works for the Crisis Group, who I know, Michael Kovrig. This is improper. Now that the United States has grabbed Mr. Ang Wang, a Chinese police officer, I would assume that I would not, if I were an American, travel to China. And I have, as an American, traveled to China twice. But I would not do it now, because everything's out the window. But the question is, if everything's out the window, if Ang Wang can be arrested, if Kovrig can be detained, why is Antonio Guterres living free? Why, and this is a question that I'm this particular Periscope will end, but I hope that we can, innercitypress.com, find us on all media, send us your thoughts, because why in God's name, if the purpose of diplomatic immunity is to allow diplomatic contacts between countries, why does the UN have automatic immunity, which has allowed its peacekeepers to rape children and simply fly out of the country without any repercussions? Why does the UN have immunity, which has allowed UN staff members like Karim al-Kharani to be sent under the UN flag to Iraq to actually do what's a total crime, drug and then rape women in Iraq, and then fly out of the country protected by Antonio Guterres? Why is Guterres himself the kingpin of a sex trafficking conspiracy, living in a mansion with no thought of being arrested? Whereas a Bronx crack-dealing rapper is now probably going to be detained for decades. So, if there's a rationale for diplomatic immunity, and there is one, now the UN's rationale might be different. The rationale might be kind of a Good Samaritan law concept, that they're doing God's work, don't allow people to sue them. But that should only apply to the humanitarian side of the UN, if at all. Now, the UN peacekeepers brought cholera to Haiti and killed 10,000 people, and they haven't paid 1 penny. This is impunity. This is not immunity. This is impunity. So I know that this is not as legal schmiegel as I'd like, but this is a legal question that I find extremely important. And it's important to me as well in terms of the First Amendment. As a journalist, I covered the UN. I covered it. And little by little, it became clear there were no rules there. They threw me out of my office and may have a minder, but I was still allowed to go in. And then under Antonio Guterres, they just physically beat me up and threw me out. And there was never an appeal, and there was never any hearing. Nothing. In fact, now I applied to cover this year's General Assembly. First, there was no response, and then the night before it began, they sent, "You've been declined for the following reasons," and it was blank. That's the most contemptuous and sleazy thing I've ever seen. And so I will not rest. So usually these episodes of Inner City Press School of Law, tongue-in-cheek, try to provide an answer. Here I'm raising a question. Why does the UN have immunity, and how can it be removed so that justice can prevail? Okay. I don't know. I've been called a whistleblower. I'm not. I'm just a reporter. I do report on whistleblowers. To be a whistleblower, I think you have to work for the UN. Then you blow the whistle. I worked in the UN. This is the weird thing. The UN is immune, but it has an internal justice system for its own employees. But if you're a journalist inside the UN, you have no protection at all. This was explained to me both by police, and it's also true. All right. It's also true legally. Legally, it's true. There's absolutely no protections. So it's a black hole of the law. I'm not looking for whistleblower protections. I'm just looking, at a minimum, due process. Before you rough somebody up and throw them out and impact their livelihood. See, or at an earlier stage, before I even heard of the UN, I brought a case, believe it or not, about the Delaware Freedom of Information Law. They said you had to be a resident of Delaware to do a FOIA request in Delaware. I said, I'm interested in HSBC. They're screwing people here in the Bronx. You incorporated them. I have a right to do it. And they said, no. So the theory that actually got standing and got the ball rolling was to say that my livelihood was impacted. It's a shame you have to plead that. It shouldn't be about money, but that's one of the constitutional rights, to ply your livelihood. So how can the UN try to steal a journalist's livelihood with no hearing at all? Nothing. Just Big Tony gets to choose which softball journalist he wants in and which hardball journalist he wants out. It's incorrect. But that's just one side of the impunity problem. Obviously, Haitians have suffered more. Child rape victims in CAR have suffered more. So it's an important question. And I hope we can get to the bottom of it. This is going to be an ongoing theme, but not the only theme in the Inner City Press School of Law, because there's a lot of other interesting legal questions about, the right to own things or fair use. The law is very interesting, but the law must be brought to bear on this most corrupt, most impugn international organization. And on that note, have a good weekend.